Okay, hello everybody and welcome to our Boxcryptor webinar today. Today's topic, Boxcryptor for Teams. However, we have so many signups and I think I know why. We are releasing our MS Teams, Microsoft Teams integration soon. So some of you may be interested in that. And to make it clear first, yes, I will show a quick demo today at the end of this webinar of our integration, of our Microsoft Teams integration. However, main topic of today's webinar is Boxcryptor for Teams. And yes, let's start. And I will share my screen now. Okay, so during the webinar, please feel free to ask any questions you have. You can use the chat or you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom. I will do my best to answer all your questions at the very moment. However, if your question, well, maybe is slightly out of topic, maybe I will come back to you via mail. Okay, so yes, some people had issue with the screen. Now everything is fine. Okay, let's start. This webinar is divided into two parts. The first part is setting up Boxcryptor for Teams. This is done via our web app. And the second part is the part where I will switch onto the desktop client. And today I will show you everything on a Windows machine. However, as you may know already, Boxcryptor is available for all platforms. Before we start, just 3 quick tips if you start with Boxcryptor for Teams. First of all, you can always sign up for Boxcryptor for Teams with a free 14 days trial on our website, boxcryptor.com for Teams, and start a free trial. So the first tip, well, of course, yes, you can sign up for our webinar. The first tip is please do not work, when you're testing Boxcryptor, do not work with your actual files, but use dummy files. The chances of data loss is very, very small. However, we may change some permissions or you may switch maybe account. So I would recommend that you're using dummy files. The second thing is, during, for example, setting permissions, you have to sync the files with the cloud storage provider. Today's topic is OneDrive, so the OneDrive client has to sync these files. And as this has to be done every time you change a permission, for example, if you change a group permission or a single user permission, you have to sync. So please make sure that you have a good internet connection and also that, well, basically your sync client does work. And the last thing is that everything you're doing, for example, if you're encrypting large amount of data, it can be a delay for your colleagues. So my recommendation is to make the transition from your testing, from a demo, to actual working with Boxcryptor at maybe Friday afternoon or on the weekend. It doesn't take too long. However, if your colleagues are working with a file and you encrypt the file during when you're working with it, it may cause some confusion. Okay, so yeah, I can see many people joined. So if you have any questions, please use the chat or the Q&A. So if you have started a trial, you can sign in on our website, boxcryptor.com app. And today I will use a dummy account, johndoe@boxcryptor.com. Boxcryptor is a zero-knowledge solution. So if you lose your password, you will lose access to your files. We can't help you with that. However, with the Boxcryptor for Teams company or enterprise license, you can set a master key. And the master key is created from another password. And with that master key, you as an administrator can access all encrypted files by your colleagues. And even if they lose their password or maybe they leave the company, you can still access these files. I will show you in the later part of the webinar how to use the master key. On the first sign-in, you will see that the green layout here indicates that we are within our personal account tab. And I will just go quickly through here. So it's your personal account. You should definitely sign up for our newsletter and also for our Microsoft for Teams newsletter. Next one is, if you do know your password, you can actually change your password. That's no issue. And you can always do that on your on boxcryptor.com/app. Next one is the two-factor authentication. If you have a for example, authenticator app or a security key like YubiKey installed, you can enable or disable it here. Just a quick reminder, this is only for your personal account, so setting up two-factor authentication for your company is done on the Company tab. Next, you can see which groups you're a member of, and you can manage your devices. For example, as we can see here, I was signed in on that device here and on a mobile phone. You can always remove these devices in case of losing a device or maybe a device gets stolen. And our web session. Our help pages, oh yeah, I removed the device, so I got now logged out. So this always works as long as the device has an internet connection. If you have any questions, you can always directly contact me or our support team. However, we have help pages, and these help pages are very good, in my opinion. And last but not least, the advanced options. Here you can export your keys and delete your account. Exporting keys for a regular user is more like a backup solution. However, for you as an administrator, exporting key does also mean that you are exporting the master key. So in case you want to back up not just the files, but also the keys, you can always use this feature here. And in the future, we will offer like an automated process to export the keys. Okay, that's the personal tab, and here on the left side, we will now go to manage organization. And as you can see, the blue layout indicates that we switched now to the organization. Okay, I have the first question, and I will quickly answer this question because it's actually a pretty good question. If I travel to places that don't offer internet access, how long will Boxcryptor continue to run before I have to use local account? So for if you're working with Boxcryptor, that means if you're accessing data, encrypting and decrypting, you don't need an internet connection. For some operations, for example, first sign in on a new device or setting new permissions, you need an internet connection. But if your device is offline, you still have the keys caged, and so you can just work with your device or with Boxcryptor on your device as you would expect it to work. So actually, the local account feature is really like a backup feature, and you don't need it on a regular basis. Okay, now organization. So the organization tab here, you can change the name of your organization. That's not very interesting. However, the next part is very interesting and one of the most recommended policies you can actually set up, and that's the master key. As you can see here with the master key, you can reset your user passwords, manage all groups, and decrypt all files in your organization. Basically, the master key protects you or your company from data loss, and for example, a user forgets his password or he leaves the company, you can always access these files, and you can also change permission of files you normally wouldn't have permission to. So the first recommended thing to do is to set up your master key. You have to enter your personal account password, and in the next step, you have to set the master key password. Okay. So the zero knowledge aspect of Boxcryptor also applies to the master key password. If you lose your master key password or you forget it, you lose access. Okay. So 1 second, we have to generate the keys. Okay. Now we have set up a master key. So the next important step is to onboard your users. We have different options here. Maybe the first option you have is to just simply add a user using his mail address. And this is what I will do today, because I will only show you one user, because everything else applies to if you're using 1 or 100 users, it doesn't matter. So using this technique, you will get a temporary password, and you have to send the user that temporary password via a secure channel. And on his first sign in, the user has to change that password. As you can see, we also have an import button here. With that import button, you can import a CSV file with your usernames and user email addresses. However, we also offer user directory, for example, Active Directory, or using Dropbox Business. Actually, we support all identity providers that use the LDAP protocol. And if you are using our enterprise solution, you can use a single sign-on with Boxcryptor. So next are groups. Groups are the perfect way to manage permissions, and it's also the recommended way to use permissions. Why? If you're setting permissions, I will show you that later on the device here. If you're setting permissions, you have the options to use the one account of a user, or you can use groups. However, if you are adding more users, every time you add a single user to permissions of a Boxcryptor encrypted file, the file has to get, it's changed because of we are adding the keys of the user. So if you're using groups, only once the group keys get added to the file. And for example, if you add a user to a group or remove him, the group key doesn't change, and so you don't have to change, you don't have to sync the file again. So it's always recommended to use groups. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to answer them, to ask them. Okay, we will create two groups. One group is the everybody group. So let's say company files everybody should or could have access to. For example, I don't know, maybe marketing or marketing stuff, for example. Exactly. So as we have set the master key, we have to enter our master key password here. And now the group is created. And we will also add Jane. Okay. And yeah, I will create another group. Let's call it the HR group. So using Boxcryptor is not just protecting your files in case you don't want any government institution or the cloud provider to access these files, but also if you want to separate the access to files in your company. And in particular, files like personal files, files that are associated to colleagues should be protected. Okay. Okay, so now we have switched out. Okay, back to the organization. Okay, we now have our master key added. We have two users, Jane and John Doe. We have two groups, and now we can, before we go to the activities, we will go to policies. So with Boxcryptor, you have a lot of policies, and you can also customize these policies, just that Boxcryptor fits into your specific, maybe compliance or anything else you have. I will just give you a quick overview of what we have. For example, you can restrict the access to specific countries, IP addresses, and also countries. Next one is the account. We do have, per default, the account reset from members of a company is not allowed. So if you want to allow people to reset their account, that indicates that they lose access to the previous encrypted files. You can allow it. However, per default, it's not allowed. And for example, you could disallow key export. With every policy, you can also, well, maybe we can try the disallow key export here. Exactly. You can accept specific users. For example, you could create a group like admin, or you can just pick the specific user, for example, here, John Doe. So now Jane can't export her keys. Oh, one question. If someone is leaving the company, can I disable the key that this person was using? If that person was part of a group, what are the ripple effects of that person leaving? Yes, there are two options. You can just maybe go here to users. You can always disable or you can delete a user. The recommended way is to disable the user, because if you disable a user, his keys don't get deleted. However, he will get signed out of any active devices, and he also can't access any of his previous encrypted files. But his keys are still there. So if you, for example, have to encrypt the files using the master key, you can still do that. So deleting is not recommended, and we also present you a little warning screen if you want to delete somebody. And there are basically no ripple effects if a person leaves the group. So when he disables, he gets removed from the group view. And for example, if he's the only member of a group, the group will be empty. And yeah, that's basically it. So no ripple effects here. If somebody leaves the company, you can disable his account and he will lose access, yeah, instantly. And another question, if only a portion of my company will be using Boxcryptor, how do I prevent them from erroneously encrypting folders, files that others without Boxcryptor will need access to? Great question, and we can come back to the policies. So with the policies, you can also set the encryptions here, for example. You can require encryption or you can require the file name encryption. And what could be better for you is the permission. So you can disallow people from changing permission. That also indicates that you can, for example, disallow them to encrypt specific folders if you want to. Oh, and is Duo's multi-factor authentication license embedded? Yes, we have a support for Duo. Exactly. For example, here, well, every user can use Duo. However, you can also, as a policy, require two-factor authentication using Duo. Okay, so that are the policies. So you can customize just how Boxcryptor behaves. Next one is the activities. So you can see some basic activities here. For example, you can see that my account created some policies, but if we have active users, you can see if a user signed in on a new device, for example, and what he did. And maybe important if you're using with a data privacy officer, for example, you can also export these activities and share them with somebody else. Okay, and last but not least here, you have, of course, the option to manage your plan. And currently we're using here on that demo account, Boxcryptor Enterprise account. And if you're interested in testing Boxcryptor or purchasing a license for your company, you can also contact us via sales@boxcryptor.com. Me and my colleagues, we will contact you. Okay, so that was the first part of the webinar. So setting up the company, everything can be done how you want to do it. If you want to manage your users with an Active Directory or even with single sign-on, you can do that, and setting your policies. So the next step is we're going on the device. If you haven't downloaded Boxcryptor yet, you can do that on boxcryptor.com. And after the installation, as you can see here, you have to sign in. Okay. So I will do, one question. Can I prevent a user to access files only from the company PC, not install Boxcryptor on his iPad to access? Yes, for example, you can limit the amount of devices he's allowed to, but you can also use, well, it's a custom feature, but we do offer it. You can prevent people from signing in from different devices. So yes, if you're interested in this feature, please send us an email and we will, our technical solutions engineers will guide you how to do this. It's pretty simple, but it's not a base feature that we offer via our web overview. Okay, so I signed in Boxcryptor, as you can see here in the task list. Boxcryptor is available, but first of all, I will just quickly go to the settings. As you can see, well, I will remove this here. We will show that later. I have two cloud storages currently installed. It's Dropbox and OneDrive. Today's topic is OneDrive and SharePoint, so we will only use our OneDrive. However, if you want to use Boxcryptor with multiple cloud storages, or you want to add a file server or a network drive, yeah, you can add it always using this button here. However, normally Boxcryptor detects all most major cloud storage providers and, for example, network drives. Yeah, another question, a restriction to country. Can this be bypassed by using a VPN? Yes, actually, well, this is just a sign-in from Boxcryptor. So if your users are using a VPN, it can be bypassed. However, well, the recommended way to prevent this is maybe limit the amount of different devices a user can have. So if that's an actual threat for you, that somebody from anywhere is using a VPN to sign in with one of your users' accounts, the recommended way is to let them sign in with specific devices, and after that restrict any other sign-in. So, and just another question, how does encryption work with a NAS? Is it 100% supported and working? Yes, just for example, if I would have a NAS integrated here in my file system, I could basically just select it and Boxcryptor will work with it just flawlessly. Can you please also show how Boxcryptor will work with G Drive? I can show it to you. Please send me a mail, but today's webinar is about OneDrive. However, yeah, basically, if you're using Google Drive, it's nothing changes here. Okay, manage locations, and I will do another setting here, and yeah, we can talk maybe about the app protection. So as you know, Boxcryptor encrypts files. However, we do have an app protection, that's password protection and PIN protection. But just for your understanding, this protection is only the app, the Boxcryptor app you're running on your device. So this hasn't anything to do with the actual encryption, just the access to the Boxcryptor application here. And I will enable the file name encryption. Just yeah, it's yeah, very nice to see for you when a file gets encrypted. Okay, if you double click the Boxcryptor drive, I'm sorry, wrong window, exactly. Boxcryptor opens here on the left side, and as you can see, we have the Dropbox and the OneDrive. And on the other side, I will quickly show you, 1 second, let's do it again. The view directly via the OneDrive. So, as you can see, I already have files here, the company files, and these files are not encrypted. So it doesn't matter if I access this folder via the Boxcryptor drive on the left side or the actual OneDrive folder on the right side. We can access these Word files and work with them. So they are not encrypted yet. So 1 second, exactly here. So if you already have files on your OneDrive, for example, you can easily encrypt these, and doing that within the Boxcryptor drive, right-click, Boxcryptor encrypt. Now Boxcryptor asks you to close all open files and encrypt it. We're adding that prefix here, encrypted, just to prevent any sync issues. After Boxcryptor encrypted the file or the folder, you can just rename it again. As you can see here on the left side, we have the green icon that indicates that folder is encrypted. And on the right side, it's actually encrypted. It has the file name encryption, and all files here are also encrypted and also have the file name encrypted. If you want to work with that file again, just exit it via the Boxcryptor drive, and we can work with our business plan file here. And yeah, for example, add anything else, and save it, and it will get encrypted and decrypted on the fly by the Boxcryptor drive. However, these folders have already been uploaded to OneDrive, so basically Microsoft already has that content. So if you want to, the best way is, of course, to move files to the cloud with Boxcryptor. I have prepared 2 folders here, accounting and HR. And if you want to encrypt these files, the location of these files could be anywhere. It could be your regular file server or just on your device. You can just drag and drop them. Boxcryptor now asks you if you want to encrypt these files and folders. And after the OneDrive client successfully synced the files, we can access them. Once again, here on the right side, I will just that you can see that these files actually are encrypted. Okay, now the OneDrive sync client is syncing, but I will now show you how you can share permissions with files and folders. So at the moment, if we check the permissions here, right-click Boxcryptor Manage Permissions, as you can see, the only person that can access these files is John Doe. So the first thing you want to do is you just want to see, okay, accounting, we're going to Boxcryptor, show original file. Okay, so this is our original file. Normally you would now share the file with somebody else from the company, for example. We are skipping this step now because I will work on the same device, but normally you would now share access to that physical file. And on the next step, you can go again in the Boxcryptor drive, Boxcryptor Manage Permission. I already told you that we have 2 options here, add a group or add a user, but the recommended way is to add a group. And now we see the groups we created. So there's accounting, folder. So maybe, well, we just set it to everybody, but normally we would have an accounting group, for example, and Boxcryptor will now change permissions of accounting. If you have any questions during the processing of the permissions, please feel free. I will just grab a. Okay, so our permissions are now applied to the group everybody, and I will also apply to the group HR. And after that, we will change the user, and just to show you how the permissions work, and yeah, actually how permissions work if a user doesn't have the permission. So we have a few questions, I think. No, we don't have any questions. So if you have a question, okay. I will now change Boxcryptor user, but please keep in mind that I won't change OneDrive user. So we are basically working with the same set of files, just with different Boxcryptor users to show you how actually permissions are working. So if you remember, we created Jane Doe. She has a temporary password I still have in my copy paste. Exactly. So this is the first sign in for Jane Doe into her Boxcryptor account. So she has to set a new password. And we will now sign in. Okay, we have a question. I may have missed something, but the file names on your left panel do not let me know their actual file names. So how can a user know what file to access? Oh, it's the right panel. Okay, yeah, so let me sign in and I will show you how a user can identify which file. So first of all, if you, for example, don't want to, sorry, I'm on a test system, so you can ignore that error message. It's because I'm on a test system. Normally it takes two or three attempts. So normally if you don't want to work with that encrypted file names, 1 second, excuse me, as I said before, we are on a, okay, we are here on a file names encrypted with the folders, but if you don't want it, you can, for example, disable, I'm sorry, we will, you can disable, for example, the file name encryption, create the folders. That means the folders are created without the file name encryption, and after that, enable file name encryption, so that only the file name encryption only applies to all the files that are uploaded. Yeah, as I said before, I'm on a test system, so I have to restart the Boxcryptor application. Sorry for that, but I wanted to show you the Microsoft Teams integration, so I'm working on a test system here. Okay. Once again. Okay, and sorry, so the other way to identify these folders which you're working for is if you're right-clicking within the Boxcryptor drive, you can actually let you point to the actual file, so to the physical file that lays within the OneDrive. Okay. Okay, now the sign-in works. Sorry for that delay. And we are now signed in. Just let me show you again. We are now signed in with the account of Jane Doe. So as you can see, Jane doesn't have the permission to access all files and folders. For example, the first folder here, if she checks the permissions, she has an access denied. And why is that? The permissions are loading. She doesn't have any access to that file. However, for example, for the HR folder, we can manage the permissions. And as we can see, Jane is a member of the HR group, so she has the full permission. And for example, if she wants to work with that contract together with John Doe or anybody else, she can do that easily. And just to come back on your question, how to identify a specific folder, right-click, Boxcryptor, show original in OneDrive, and it will directly point to that original file. So that's the way how you can work with encrypted file names and folder names. Okay. Last thing I want to show you using OneDrive and Boxcryptor is the use of the master key. So let's say Jane is encrypting some files on her OneDrive, for example, secret company files, and she is creating, let's just for the purpose of a demonstration, here's a secret text file, and she's entering some text, super secret, don't open, okay. And well, something happens with Jane. Maybe Jane leaves the company, Jane, I don't know, something happens with Jane and she loses her password, she can't access these files. So how can John or you as an administrator get access to these files again? We are just waiting here for the OneDrive client to sync, and after that we are switching accounts and we are going back to John Doe. I will show you how the master key works. So yeah, here's the question about our pricing. So our pricing for example, teams starting with 5 users is available on boxcryptor.com. And yes. Okay, so now the file is synced and we will now switch users again and we will go to John. So as you just saw, I didn't give anybody permission to that file. And that also means that John doesn't have any access to that file. And we are now using the master key. Yeah, one question, would it not be more secure to not show Jane Doe folders that she has no access to? Because knowing that there are such files might trigger a user to try to get into it. That's correct. So there are 2 different things. So the first thing is you can, the physical access is managed using OneDrive. So if you don't give a user the physical access to a file, he doesn't even see it. Yeah, just for a purpose of demonstration here, Jane can see the folder. However, for example, if you're using a misconfigured file server, or if your management is using a file server and the IT administration has access to that file server, Boxcryptor permissions are the way to protect these files, but also from external intruders. Okay, we are now back signed in with John Doe, and as you can see the secret files here. And if you want to access these files, it says the parameter is incorrect, the file is encrypted, we can't access that file. And if you're checking the permissions here, manage permissions, you can see access denied, you don't have permission. So for us as an administrator with the master key, nothing easier than that. You're going to the Boxcryptor client account and the master key is currently locked. So we will unlock it now. Okay, so if you have any questions, once again, we have many questions today, very good, I like it, but if you have any more, yeah, please feel free. Okay, we now unlocked the master key and let's see the magic happens. We can access that file, the super secret don't open file. And for example, with the master key, we could now manage the permissions. We still don't have that permission, but for example, we could give John Doe the permission here, or if we have an maybe data protection group, or we have an administration management group, we could give that permission to that group, and we can also simply decrypt that file. What languages are supported in the Boxcryptor application? I hope I get every language supported. I think it's, also, of course, German, English, Spanish, Russian, French. I think there are more, but yeah, you can check it on our website. And yeah, maybe I will come back to you after the webinar and I'll give you a list of supported languages. Very good question. How can I protect the master key for iPrinciple? Currently, we don't have this feature, and there's a recommended way, or maybe using multiple people on one computer. However, we are already working on a solution for that. The thing is, it's pretty difficult. We have a solution for that, but we have to implement it. It's Boxcryptor is still based on zero knowledge, and so we have to, or we found a solution to get like a 4 eyes principle or even more eyes principle to create that master key. So a feature we don't have yet, but it will come in the future. If Jane has left the company and to avoid to use the master key to access the files she has created, do I have to re-encrypt the files? So you don't have to re-encrypt the files. So you mean if Jane leaves the company without decrypting her files. So what Jane could do if you know that she is leaving, she could simply set permissions for any file. So she could set a colleague with the new permissions, or she could just add a group. However, if Jane leaves and nobody knows that she leaves, or maybe she forgot her password, the master key, you have to use the master key to get access to that file again. Okay, so I will just delay the answer of the questions because we have so many, and I will go to the next step, and I will just quickly give you an explanation how to use SharePoint online with Boxcryptor. So on office.com, you can always go to SharePoint. And the thing with Boxcryptor is we are using, we are only encrypting what's accessible on the device. So by that, we are preventing any files to get uploaded to the cloud without being encrypted. So what you have to do in the first step is to sync your SharePoint site or the documents of your SharePoint site with your local OneDrive client. And that's pretty easy. So you're going to SharePoint Documents, and once we are done here, it takes a little bit longer as I am streaming here. Where's the sync button? Yeah, here's the sync button. And as you can see, I tested it before, so we have some encrypted files here. I click sync. And now we are getting ready to sync. We're opening it with OneDrive, and OneDrive automatically syncs your SharePoint online. And normally within a few seconds, Boxcryptor automatically detects. We can just wait. Normally Boxcryptor automatically detects the SharePoint online sync folder, and you can exactly, here it happened, SharePoint, and you can now work with your here Secomba GmbH management, and yeah, you see the uploaded file here is actually that file, and you can now work. So there is a flaw with that. You have to sync it, but yeah, now it's coming. We are working on our Microsoft Teams integration, and the first step, of course, is the Microsoft Teams integration itself. However, what we are doing now is developing like a web client, and with that web client, maybe not that year, but in next year, we will be able, or we are planning to be able to actually encrypt files and work with encrypted files directly within that SharePoint online browser view. Basically, I have to say thank you very much. That's the main topic today, Boxcryptor for Teams with OneDrive and with SharePoint Online. And I hope you could learn something and you saw how easy it is to set up a company with Boxcryptor and to start encrypting first files and share permissions. If you have any more questions, you can always contact me. Me and my colleagues will contact you after the webinar, and you can ask us questions. If you want to have a quote, maybe you can send us an email at sales@boxcryptor.com. And if anything else, just send me an email and I will be glad to answer every of your questions.